Warning. This podcast features the truth about owning and operating mobile home parks. The following program is not designed to be sexy. It will not hype you up on MHPs. Rather, this is a raw take on this industry and how you find your own path to success. Welcome to MHP IRL, Mobile Home Parks in Real Life, with your host, Ryan Norris.
So today I have the Kevan Enger, Managing Director at Capstone, lead broker, absolute rock star broker. Kevan, let's jump right into it. You have an incredible story about how you broke into this business right before anyone really knew about it or it was hyped up. And it was tough for you starting out, and flash forward to 2019 and you guys are getting listings everywhere.
It's been a long journey for sure. It started in the business probably about 8 or 9 years ago. Had no real estate background, no finance background. Didn't really know what I was talking about. Within a couple months, I was having meetings with folks that own planes, and I said maybe there's something to this mobile home park business. Stuck with it. I knew that it was so difficult that if I just don't quit, I can be successful because it's gonna be very hard to follow me in. There's a lack of data. There's a high barrier to entry, and it's gone well. I mean, it's the first 3 years were a struggle. The first year I made $2,500. Make more than that now, but it definitely didn't happen by accident. It didn't happen overnight.
So the one thing that I find interesting about what Capstone does differently is you guys are so ubiquitous in the apartment realm that you kind of see the direction that manufactured housing is going. Off air, you tell me all the time about how you are so proud to work for this company. How quickly did you realize that about them, and what advantages do you think they have going forward?
Yeah, I think for one thing, a brokerage can be kind of a piranha tank. There's a lot of turnover. There's a lot of stabbing each other in the back. This is a really kind of sounds like I drink the Kool-Aid, but it's a very collaborative environment. The culture is very strong. Everyone really enjoys each other on company trips. Everyone has a great time with each other. It's not fake. It's very real. There's no assholes. So it's a great place to be. And then as far as the manufactured housing division, Capstone was formed as a multi-family brokerage. And so it really affords us some advantages against our competitors. And we have 7 offices in 5 states. We have the ability to leverage institutional marketing materials. A lot of times in some regions we're competing with folks that have Word documents that they're trying to present a deal with. We're very seller and client focused. We really take the time to dig in and understand the deal and present it and maximize price and terms, whereas a lot of our competitors focus mostly off market. And these are all things that are this is pretty much standard in the apartment world right now, but is kind of new to the MH world. So we have a huge advantage in that sense.
So tell me, you made $2,500 your first year out of the gate. Were you married at the time?
Yeah, I was married, and she actually never ever doubted me. She thought from the very beginning that there was. She knew I'd be successful at it, which I was in my late 30s, so it was definitely kind of a career mulligan. But it worked out. I was previously in the corporate world, regional sales, very bored, uninspired. I don't think I had a great work ethic. I got into this, and it was a huge suffer at the beginning. But I'm kind of a no limits kind of a business guy, so it was very inspiring to me. The fact that there was no limits, there was just kind of there was no blueprint, there was no playbook, was exciting. It was challenging and scary, but it was also very inspiring and exciting. And I knew that if I just didn't quit, I couldn't fail. And that's basically what I took. My wife never doubted me, but everyone else in my family at some point. I went from first year 2,500, second year was like 50, third year was the toughest because I went back down to 15,000. So I was like, that was the year I turned 40, and it's like, whoa, what are we doing here? But just never. People say, did you ever think about quitting? I was like, there was really never a moment I thought about quitting.
And kids,
yeah. When I first started in the business, my daughter was a year and a half. My son was born, second year in, so it was DEFCON 5. Basically, every moment I was awake, I was working.
And this is before this industry exploded. What would you tell someone getting started now? Because at least what I'm seeing now is it seems like it's a complete piranha tank.
It is a piranha tank. We're seeing more and more groups jump into the space. We're fortunate in the sense that we do have good traction in different markets. We kind of saw what was going to happen a few years ago, which was why we really we had a very strong presence. This started out as like a Central Florida trailer park company. I know it's a horrible term, but And then, over time, we got some business in Georgia. Then all of a sudden it became kind of a southeastern platform where we had listings throughout the southeast. And then, we hired, through hiring and getting some really good talent. We have folks focusing on Ian's focused on kind of like the Southwest and Texas. My best friend I grew up with, who came from a corporate world, very, very successful in that world, joined us, and he's in Ohio, so he's got a lot of traction in the Midwest. So the national presence has really afforded us to like kind of connect the dots and find the best buyers for each deal. Whereas a regional broker working on a deal in Alabama or the Carolinas has a lot of times kind of a very limited database to pull from, where we can kind of pull someone where they're eagerly, aggressively trying to get into the space in that market.
So I cold call like a fiend, and it's very rare that I'll get in touch with someone who is not aware of you and does not have wonderful things to say about you and your team. The question is, how did you get that to snowball?
I mean, really, it was just it was a little bit of a charade for a while. It was myself and the apartment analyst, really. And then we got the right pieces in place. I mean, Ian was a huge one. I mean, he's been with us for 2 years and he hit the ground in the dead sprint. I mean, he's a natural. Brian's a big piece. Hunter, our new analyst, Hunter is like really, really strong. So I kind of saw like what was possible here, but I was just, it was having a hard time finding the right pieces. And now that we have those pieces, I mean, I still feel like I tell these guys all the time, we're just scratching the surface, but I think have as much presence as anybody in the space, but I truly feel like we're just scratching the surface. We all enjoy being around each other. We work very well together. We're very respectful of each other's relationships. For instance, like, if I uncover a guy who's, owns 5,000 sites in Texas, I'm not going to just hoard that relationship, which is pretty typical in Texas. I'm going to say, hey, Ian, it makes more sense for you to work with this guy. So we have a very, very, very good chemistry, very good team chemistry. And it took a while to get there, but we got the right pieces in place.
So one thing that I've noticed in the markets that I play ball in, folks know folks that you have sold their properties. And because of that referral engine, because of treating people right, you've created an insane referral engine too.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's very, it doesn't seem like long ago where I was doing a BOV on a 20 site deal with, meth lab, kind of a park in Central Florida. And now I get I'd say 80% of my business is incoming, which is an anomaly. It's hard to believe, but I'm proud that we're here. I don't take anything for granted. I still live with, I refer to as a very healthy fear of going back to the $2,500 a year. I think to me, the best brokers are the ones that there was some suffering at the beginning. It wasn't necessarily a draw or a salary. It was if this one falls apart, you're out of the business. And that's what I dealt with.
Some of the things you do extraordinarily well that I've noticed, you are really good at exiting a conversation. Like, incredible. It's magic. And another big piece that I've noticed you're really good at, managing the emotional side of the business. And I really want to talk about controlling your own emotions, but before we get there, I know for a fact some of the properties you have sold, you have had, I don't want to say that the people themselves were overly emotional, but I know for a fact that those transactions had emotion behind it. And I know for a fact you've done an outstanding job controlling and managing that. What advice do you have for people looking to buy or looking to participate in this space who know that it's going to be extraordinarily emotional?
Well, I think that's, I was very self-conscious getting into sales in general, even before brokerage. I was under the impression I'm highly, highly competitive, but I'm also relatively easygoing. I wasn't sure I was aggressive enough. And once I got into the business, I found that it was a pretty good differentiator. Like, I kind of separated myself from other brokers in a sense. I was less brokery. I was more real, more authentic, and I was able to make stronger relationships and stronger impressions on people kind of up front. So to me, and as far as the business, I mean, it's a roller coaster business. I mean, I insulate my wife from kind of like the financial ups and downs that go on from a day-to-day basis, because you can make a ton of money in this business or you can make none. And none's very realistic. Like, we have 14 deals under contract right now. I can go through and figure out a way that they all close or that none of them do. And that's kind of what you live with. So I think, oddly enough, it took me a while to find this business, but my skill set and my temperament's perfect for it, in the sense that I'm competitive enough to like never give up. I always have the grind. I always have the tenacity to chase the next deal. But I'm also kind of like, I don't get like, I'm not a roller coaster if something goes sideways. It also, I mean, for what it's worth, that healthy fear generates a very healthy prospecting routine and very healthy pipeline, because I'm not, like I said, I mean, I live in constant fear of going back to the first year, and that's never going to happen in my life.
That's so, as a former car salesman, that was what ultimately, one of the things that ultimately made me quit was there's a reason why I haven't broken into brokerage, even though I cold call like a fiend. It's because I can't manage that roller coaster. It just takes the uncertainty behind the paycheck coming in. Like, how do you keep such a champ attitude about it? I mean, do you act, is this just natural for you, or is there...
I think it's relatively natural for me. Like, I have even within our own team, I won't say any names, but they're like, I have no idea how you kind of bite your tongue on like certain situations. And I'm like, well, you can kind of win the battle or you can lose the war here. I mean, I could be right and make them wrong, but like, this is someone that owns so and so, this many sites, or all of a sudden, I think so many people are short-sighted in how they take over. They look at the business where like they're gonna act like a cannibal on one deal, and all of a sudden, like, it just kind of stains their name. And that's also it's kind of differentiated us in the sense that we're the guys that work really hard and are straight shooters and very authentic.
I think you've answered all of your questions on your own because of just who you are, and it just oozes out of you. And I have to pay you that compliment because I'm desperately trying to get you to like talk good about yourself. I can't get you to do it.
I just didn't quit.
But Kevin, that's what I absolutely admire about you, is the fact that we are surrounded with Instagram and Facebook, and even myself on LinkedIn. Like, I, to a certain degree, feel compelled to signal to the market because someone who'd never heard of me had no idea what I can and can't do. So to a certain degree, and obviously on Instagram, it's the most egregious, where people are just posting all this stuff that they've never really truly done. And it's just such a breath of fresh air to talk to someone who, like, quite literally have to twist your arm to get you to talk up about yourself. And I think that's what resonates with especially mom and pop buyers who get bombarded by calls, is you are not afraid to meet someone in person and literally hold their child.
No, for sure. I mean, I think like, I'm a humble person, but I'm very confident in our abilities and like what differentiates us, with our with our apartment platform. We know what 30, I told you offline, like mobile home parks is apartments 30 years ago. And, the sophistication and the consolidation that's happened with apartments. And we have very clear insight into what that looks like with our apartment platform. So
I think the relevant question there is what's next. So you've mentioned several times that you feel like this industry is going the way of apartments. In what regard do you see, at least within the marketplace, not talked about what direction this is likely heading?
I think it's going to be just more, there's going to be more velocity. There's going to be more sophisticated groups. It's going to be less generational holds. It's going to be, more 5 to 7 year holds. It's going to be, more on the brokerage side. It's going to be more folks who actually know how to broker a deal instead of just send out a Word document with bullets and a cap rate that doesn't really connect to anything. And, people.
It's really painful.
Right.
Yes.
So I think that I feel like we're way ahead of the curve. I think there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit that a lot of guys are making a lot of money off of, but we believe that low-hanging fruit is going to go away, and we're very well positioned to kind of move forward in the future. One other thing, as far as off-market versus on-market, I think I have an article coming out in MH Insider in the next couple months, but we're finding that more and more buyers want to buy deals on market. The reason why is because there's less retrades, there's less misinformation, there's less brain damage, and like they're totally okay with like a broker actually kind of working as an insulator between the buyer and the seller, and kind of helping get the deal done versus working through the shoebox, the proverbial shoebox of records and sketchy rent rolls and all that. So we're seeing more and more buyers who want to buy deals on market.
Yeah, the one thing that a mutual friend of ours does extraordinarily well is he has these banking relationships that a lot of people don't have, and he's going to crush it for the next several years as this wave of mom and pops phases out, because they a lot of times don't vet their tenants right. They don't have the best records, if you even get records. And if you are going to a bank with a lot of park-owned homes or a lot of RV income and you just have no way to support that, and you don't report that to the IRS, and you just can't prove it, it just makes it more difficult to get financing. So that must have been such a struggle for you, or at least in the short run, been a struggle for you to help, because obviously you get paid when you close deals.
Yep.
So you need to help both sides of the table, even though you only represent one.
For sure. Typically we're representing both. We connect the buyer and seller, but yeah, it's our job to get deals done and in a way that's hopefully that's a fair deal for both sides.
So tell me, for someone breaking into the space, because the bulk of my listeners are trying to break into the space, what recommendations do you have for them to approach someone like you?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, obviously there's a lot of folks trying to get into the space right now, and I mean, I'm full disclosure, I'm contacted on a daily basis with people who don't own parks and send me very ambiguous emails and calls like, hey, here's what we're looking for. And it's tough. I mean, it's because we deal with 1,000 buyers for every seller. So it's, unfortunately for us, it's like just kind of a qualifier. Typically we're looking for folks that own a park. That's like one of the first qualifying questions. But if you don't, I would say that, you're probably working off of a playbook or a binder or a an education that's kind of telling you things that maybe are less realistic than they really are as far as cap rate, MSA size, upside, city utilities and whatnot, lot rent versus park owned homes. I mean, you're going to have to, based on kind of the velocity and the demand right now, you're going to have to uncheck some of those boxes and get a little bit uncomfortable on your first purchase and buy something that's a little bit outside the box and kind of put a flag in around and say, hey, I closed a deal. And at that point, the deal flow that you see will increase tremendously.
So, I mean, it's beyond just proof of funds and the highest purchase price. You actually need to show that you've been around, you've done it.
I mean, for us, yeah. I mean, I would say that, full, self-awareness, we don't do a whole lot of work on a whole lot of deals that are first-time buyers, but yeah, I mean, for us, we're looking for someone that typically has owned a park before. I mean, and I know on some of the smaller deals, proof of funds helps, some sort of a track record, but it's tough. I mean, it's a tough one. It's a tough one to get into.
So you mentioned earlier you'll have seemingly 1,000 buyers for one seller. Tell me, like, you have hundreds of people reaching out to you about these deals. How is a way you can kind of quickly vet who you want to talk to, who you don't want to talk to? Do you already have people kind of in buckets where you're like, okay, this is a deal for X, Y, and Z buyer? Or how do you go through that? Because I can imagine the kind of volume you get.
It's an art. I mean, especially right now, we have deals under contract or listed in 22 states, literally from Florida to the state of Washington. So you're constantly trying to connect the dots kind of in your mind, but it's more than you can do in your mind. Try to segregate your CRM. So we do that. It's just, again, some of the qualifying questions are, do you own? Where do you own? Where are you looking to own? Like, it's just trying to constantly qualify. Does this seem to make sense for them? You can get some red flags on some questions that are asked. If they just kind of get in the weeds, like, all right, this guy seems like he's like trying to figure out a reason not to buy this one. Whereas this guy seems like, it's a little bit of an art. There's a lot of intuition to it after years and years of it.
So the fascinating thing is I have a friend of mine who I'm not going to mention, but he decided he had a property he was not going to bring to a broker. And since all us property owners get cold called and mailed all the time, he was like, you know what, I'm going to do this on my own. So this is a guy who knows all the brokers and all the brokers know him. So he was like, one that I don't think many people know I have, I'm just going to pitch it off to one of these cold callers. He gets under contract with the highest bid. So he actually successfully creates a little bidding war. Gets under contract, day 29 before the money goes hard, he gets a call and they're like, can't get financing, I'm out. Livid. He's like, unreal. And these guys own at least one or two parks, right? Calls the second highest bidder. 29 days later, same story. And then he was like, I guess I'm just going to keep this. Which to me is fascinating because you can have a sophisticated person who owns a ton of properties. Books are great. Everything's great. He has every reason in the world not to need, and well connected too, not to need a broker. Tries to call one of these knucklehead cold callers, myself included, and can't do it. And to me, that's just, when it comes time to sell one of my properties one day, I don't know why you would ever not go through a broker if you were looking for the highest possible price.
If you're looking to maximize price and terms, it's so many people trip over dimes to save nickels. They have no idea what their park's worth. They're going to answer some letter from someone that, went out, 5,000 letters went out. They're going to engage one person versus all the buyers. And then like that, typically in an off-market environment, that buyer's not going to compete on our deals because they're not looking to pay full price. And then like once you get under contract, that guy knows he's got no one behind him so he can retrade. Like, whereas in our process, that person's kind of boxed in. So our process absolutely maximizes price and terms. I have like zero doubt on that. We have a lot of happy sellers and we have a lot of happy buyers. They got, what they thought they were getting is what they got. There was no surprises. The process went smoothly. We have a transaction manager that helps with the process. So it's a very professional, situation versus in an off-market environment. It's a little bit of a Mexican flea market on what's going on.
Your obligation as a broker is to get the highest possible price. And there is one person out there that is the perfect fit for a property. And I like to say this too because it's true. I buy my parks at or above, for the most part, the appraisal value. And I think the way that this should be framed isn't like, hey, I'm the Grand Slam guy who's going to get you every penny you deserve. I think the proper way to look at it is, I'm going to find the perfect person for this opportunity. Not that you're going to go and find some rich guy in California who just heard about mobile home parks once and has a money burning a hole in his pocket. You can find someone like me who's going to go, I'm going to buy this for a fair or above fair price and make it better because I was here.
Mm-hmm. For sure, no doubt. I mean, we really don't we don't bully buyers or make them pay more than they want. The process does that. So it's just, the process is foolproof in what it does. You want to talk about getting out of a conversation to end it?
Yeah.
We didn't really get into that.
I didn't know if you wanted to include that, though.
I'm good.
So, Kevin, I think where we ought to end this is, so for those of you that don't know, Kevin and I we both love sales, and we both share war stories from our prior careers and current career. And some of my favorite conversations with Kevin are just how we handle awkward situations because they're ubiquitous. You have mom and pops who throw ridiculous things at you, like the occasional racism that you have to like kind of nod your head and be like, yeah, that's great. I'm not acknowledging that. And then at the same time, like you mentioned earlier, I'm not interested in being right or wrong here. I'm interested in getting off the phone.
Right.
Tell us some of the tricks that don't give away your secrets, but...
Yeah, I think like one of the hardest things to learn in this business, especially coming from the corporate world like I did, and like my buddy Brian Hummel with us, and he's with us in Ohio. You're used to like dotting every I and crossing every T, and like that's great. It's corporate's a little bit more managing perception. You're always kind of like working your flank, right? Where's my blind spot? In this business, unfortunately, and I hate to say this, but you have to like kind of politely and respectfully, in a way that people don't comprehend, be able to kind of blow people off a little bit. Otherwise, because it's like it's as much where not to spend time as it is where to spend time. And I mean, you want to be polite. I'm a nice guy. I want to talk to everyone, help everyone out. But you got to be able to kind of move on and like kind of
gracefully exit.
And there's no partial paychecks in this business, so it's tricky. You're trying to be polite, but like you and I always say, hey, absolutely, man. Hey, let's keep this warm. Let's keep the conversation warm.
Drinks later.
Absolutely. Hey, let's circle back on this. So it's just kind of like it's you got to be able to kind of finesse people. I think that I'm not proud of it, but I think I'm pretty good at it. And now everyone's going to like rethink anytime they talk to me if I'm blowing them out.
Entrepreneurs make mistakes, but with the overwhelming amount of free information out there, you don't have to be doomed to making those same mistakes. You just have to find a consolidated version of the most important information. What if I told you I'll gift you all of my DD mistakes I've made over the years for free? Just leave me a 5-star review, screenshot the review after it goes live, and email it to me at my website, archimedesgrp.com. Afterwards, join our Facebook group, Mobile Home Park Mastermind. You'll find hundreds of other mobile home park owners sharing ideas, contractors, and deals. It's free to join, and we would absolutely love having you join us.